Hey, listeners, I choose you to come on in and enjoy the second episode of the Level Grinders podcast. I am joined today by my brother and co-host, Stephen Beagle. Stephen, how's it going?
Fantastic. Super excited to talk about this game tonight, and I hope everybody else is ready to listen on our gushing over one of those best in class games that we've got to play over the years.
Awesome. Yeah, and also joining us, we have a very special guest. We've been kind of hinting at our guest for a little bit now, and that is Mr. Nintendo himself, KneeSean. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. Long time listener, first time special guest. I'm excited to talk about, arguably my favorite series of video games and definitely my favorite RPG.
Nice, for sure. Yeah, I know you don't play as many RPGs as me and Steven do, but yeah, nice that we were able to find something that you can come join us on, and it's a doozy too. It's a big one. So, getting into things here, in case you missed the first episode, Level Grinders is a monthly podcast created to discuss RPGs and JRPGs, which is one of my favorite genres of video games of all time. The name of the show is, of course, based on the process of level grinding. So for those that want to just fight monsters or enemies, bad guys, whatever, over and over and over again, to gain the best upper hand that you possibly can against your foes for whatever section of the game that you're in, or sometimes even for the entire rest of the game. So level grinding, huge part of RPGs, especially older RPGs. So that's kind of where we got the name from. Some quick housekeeping. Level Grinders is a Games Are Fun production. So while this podcast will have its own feed on your favorite podcast platforms of choice, news about the show will be distributed by the Games Are Fun social media accounts, and the video content for this show will air on the Games Are Fun YouTube channel. So make sure you're following us on the Games Are Fun social platforms, podcast platforms. Follow us on YouTube, all the things, and you'll be informed on when new episodes of this show release. So, for our second episode here, as we were talking about, we got a big one here. A lot of people's favorites. You know it, you love it. We are going to be talking about the Pokemon franchise, specifically Gen 1. So, if we have future Pokemon discussions, I'm not sure if it's going to be other generations specifically, or if we're going to just cover the rest of the series as a whole. But Gen 1, because of how special it is, I definitely thought it deserved its own episode. So that's why we're here talking about it. So yeah, so this is the OG, the classic, the one that started it all, Kanto Gen 1. And I'm very excited to talk about it. So Gen 1, just real quick, is Pokemon Red and Blue. I'm sure most of y'all know this already. So yeah, Red and Blue were the very initial ones. They released on the Game Boy, the OG Game Boy, on February 27th, 1996. And as of the date of this recording, we are 2 days away from Pokemon Day of 2021. So it's very timely, I think this episode is. So just adds a little bit of extra specialness, I suppose. It was, of course, developed by Game Freak and published by Nintendo. So let's go ahead and get on into it. So I guess the first thing here is I kind of want to know how you guys first got involved with Pokemon. What was your first experience here with Gen 1?
So I actually have a very vivid and obscure memory of how I got into Pokemon. I first heard about this series from a Kentucky Fried Chicken advertisement. When Pokemon first came to North America, KFC was running like a Pokemon plush thing. Like you could spend $6 extra and get a plush, and I think they were giving out Zubat, Seal, Vulpix, and the fourth one is escaping me. But I saw these like cute little monsters at KFC and learned it was a video game. Begged my mom, hey, can we go to Target, go to the video game section and get this game? And got myself I got Pokemon Red, my brother got Pokemon Blue, and it's been a love story ever since.
Yeah, so I'm sitting here trying to rack my brain on when it would have happened, but I know I had the original Game Boy growing up, and I'm trying to think when it entered our life.
So
Palooza.
I know for me, and this might be the same for you as well. I know when I first got my hands on it was actually from our cousin Kirk, who came over for a visit. One of his friends showed it to him. He wanted it. And the funny thing about Kirk is he's not a video game player, right?
Mm.
So the fact that he even had this to begin with was somewhat surprising. And for him to bring it over, kind of show it to us, get a little bit of hands on, it was just kind of like instant magnetism. Like, what a great game. And this was
Mhm.
before like I knew that it was like such a cultural hit. This was just, it was kind of up my alley. It's an RPG. It's got monsters that you can catch and train. And yeah, so that's probably, I know that's how I first got my hands on it. So I'm guessing through Kirk and me, that's probably how you got introduced to it too. But
That's probably right. The only other way that I think another memory comes to mind is our good friend Lisa. Didn't she have it?
she also had
Maybe
it. Yep.
yellow.
She
Maybe
had
yellow or
blue.
something? Blue. Okay,
Yep.
so that memory comes to mind is playing playing it with Lisa back then, and kind of getting a good view of the game and stuff. That's going to be probably where my introduction comes in. It's so long ago, so it's very vague, but it but yeah, it's going to be within either secondhand through our cousin Kirk or through our friend Lisa. It would have been in one of those instances, somebody showing us and then diving into it the way that we did.
Yeah, so I know we had Pokemon Red. KneeSean,
Mhm.
which one did you end up getting?
I played through Red the first time, and they're essentially the same game. So it's the only differences between Red and Blue were the Pokemon you could catch in each game, which has been a staple through the series from the beginning. Is the tagline is "Gotta catch 'em all," and the only way to catch 'em all is either spend the cash to get both games or link up with friends. And I think Pokemon, that's another thing that they've been doing since the start is this is a social game. They want you to interact with other people while playing Pokemon.
Yep. And the thing is, so one of the things you mentioned, if you did buy 2 games, you also had to have a means of transferring from yourself to yourself, which would also require a second Game Boy. So definitely an investment if if you're trying to catch them all by yourself. So that would definitely be quite a feat. And so yeah, so this game is, I feel like it kind of had humble beginnings, which I guess the same could be said about the main character as well. You're literally a child deciding to go out and become the greatest Pokemon master of them all. Got to catch them all, and that's kind of it. Like you're on a quest to be the best Pokemon trainer. So it's pretty basic in that regard, um but yeah, there's some interesting things that happen along the way. But yeah, it's just, you go from gym to gym, collect some badges, level up your pocket monsters. So yeah, not a ton of story there, but was there anything in that kind of stuck out to you guys?
So story wise, like I having the anime in hand along with the game, because you're right, the game and it being an early on RPG, and it's very similar with a lot of other ones, like you can't throw a whole bunch of text in there to kind of build out this plot. So having the anime in hand at the same time kind of gives you this idea on who your character is. I know you're red or you're blue, depending on which game you end up playing, right? But you kind of follow the path of Ash Ketchum. So that was always a help to kind of give you an idea on what your task in this game was going to be. But yeah, just straight up putting it out there, you're going to train Pokemon and become a champion. And there's not much more beyond that. There's little pieces through the gameplay, getting into, especially with like something like Lavender Town, where they throw in a little side quest for you to take care of, and they give you a little story about some Pokemon in there. And then the Team Rocket and dealing with them throughout and kind of going through that story. So they have these little bits throughout the game that I think help kind of flesh it out in that regard. But like it's your story going through it, and that's one of the things that I love about this one is it's one of those first RPG games that it is your story. You get to kind of make it your own, and you determine what your motivations are going to be for it. Is it filling the whole Pokédex? Is it training the most powerful team that you possibly can to just steamroll through your gym battles? Is it purely there to take down Team Rocket and kind of be the police, of the game? You kind of have that choice to kind of make the story your own, which is always a nice piece with some of these early RPGs.
Yeah, story-wise, it's because I think for a lot of people, Pokemon is their first foray into RPGs, and so it's very simple. It's here's your objective. Now go do it. And like Steve said, but they sprinkle in a little bit of lore, and like the Team Rocket thing is probably the major B plot, but for the most part, it's you battle gyms, you want to go to the Elite Four, and you want to become the champion. And if you spend the time like diving into the lore, you got the Pokemon Mansion on Cinnabar Island gives you a lot of great info on the legendary and the mythical Pokemon from Gen 1. Lavender Town is gives you a look into how people and Pokemon interact in the afterlife. And yeah, like they don't give you a lot, but if you want to, there is actually a pretty deep story and lore in this world.
Indeed, yeah. And I think for me, one of my favorite things was, and I guess this is true for a lot of RPGs, but in this game specifically, like this world feels so lived in. And I think that was really cool. Like just walking from like town to town, right? There's people everywhere. The towns have a bunch of people in it, save from like the main town, Pallet Town. But then you have like your, sort of larger cities. There's a lot of people in there. And yeah, it's just like these little moments that you have, whether it's trainer battles, whether it's exploring these cities, going through the gyms. Like it's just, like I said, it's basic, but it's just so catching, if you will. But yeah, it just really does just grab you by being simple yet accessible and just fun, right? So, and it all goes hand in hand, right? So you have the story, you're just sort of on this quest to, like you said, Stephen, like you kind of make it your own. Are you trying to catch them all? Are you trying to be the strongest there is, the best trainer around? And I mean, ultimately at the end of the game is to be the ultimate Pokemon champion, but it's what you do between the beginning and the end that kind of, makes that story for you. So, what was the the gameplay style that you guys chose on your first playthrough? What was your main mission?
I was always more of a collector than a brawler. Like I always wanted to become the best, but I always forget the type matchups, and I'm way too much of a sore loser to like really stick my neck out there too much to be the best. But yeah, I always wanted to like collect as many Pokemon as I could, and beg with my brother to send me over his Graveler and his Haunter so I could get the Golem and the Gengars.
Yeah, so mine would have been my first playthrough of this is I initially started out that, okay, I'm going to catch all the Pokemon I can. You go through the first route there and you're catching your Caterpies and your Pidgeys and things like that. And it's like, all right, I'm catching all these Pokemon. And I was a Charmander starter. So as soon as I got to Brock's gym, you don't have a lot as a Charmander starter to battle Brock. It's a very trolly gym at the beginning of the game. And that battle inspired me to basically become the steamroller. I wanted to make sure that the next gym I was walking into, I was ready to take it down, and then subsequently the rest of the gyms after that. So I was doing the grinding to get 10 levels higher than the next gym, making sure that my Pokemon were going in with the great type matchups and all that sort of stuff. Like I wasn't gonna have a repeat of Brock in that difficult battle. So it was a initial let me collect them all, but then it very quickly became I need to be super strong. I need to be the most powerful Pokemon trainer ever. That was it.
Yeah, and it is funny. I know we kind of had a offline discussion about it. Like when you look at the starters, right? You have Bulbasaur, you have Squirtle, you have Charmander, and the game doesn't really tell you this, but when you make that decision, you're sort of choosing your difficulty level too. Because if you choose Bulbasaur, you're going to be able to steamroll those first two dungeons, gyms, no problem, because you have a Pokemon whose type is strong against those first two gyms. It's strong against the rock. It's strong against the water. If you go with Squirtle, you have an advantage in that first gym, and then you're kind of on equal footing in the second. And then if you choose Charmander, well, then you're just gonna have a bad time until like the fourth gym. not a bad time, I should say, but you do have to work harder for sure. You really kind of have to work a little bit more on team management and building that other the extra team around that starter, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, if you go in and you just choose the one you think is the cutest or the one that you think is going to be the best. And I mean, if you look just at the cartridge, right, and you see Charizard on there, you're like, I want that dragon, right? But if you get the wee baby dragon, it's gonna be a little bit tougher to get through. So I think that's certainly an interesting thing that they added in there. So speaking of starters, what's the favorite starter?
Well, initially, I think it's Charmander for me, and probably to this day, Charmander's number one. But you know, I think they're all great designs. The first evolutions for all of them are real cute. Um, I know, Adam, you have a different opinion than me for who's number third, but yeah, I think all three are like top tier designs. But for me, if you gun to my head, I'm gonna say Charmander is my favorite starter.
Yeah, I'm with KneeSean on that, and KneeSean brings up a good point. These starters, Bulbasaur, Charmander, Squirtle, are very well designed Pokemon, and they've survived through all generations. To the point where when Sword and Shield came out, these were very highly sought after Pokemon because of the design for
Mhm.
the new games. We got Charmander, and then a lot of demand was there for Squirtle and Bulbasaur because of a lot of the favorites out there for a lot of folks. But I'm a Charmander forever Pokemon trainer. There's and that fire theme has stuck with me throughout. So it's a one of my favorite Pokemon and definitely my favorite starter out of the first three. Absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely have a different opinion here. For me, it's Squirtle. I love Squirtle Squad, right? Um,
Right.
yeah,
Squirtle,
I just
Squirtle.
Squirtle. Yeah, Squirtle's awesome. He's an adorable starter. Bulbasaur's kind of cute, but I mean, I think out of the bunch, probably not the cutest. And Charmander and Squirtle, they're kind of neck and neck in terms of the cute factor. But then for me, Squirtle, it's what he grows up to be that makes me really appreciate Squirtle, because Blastoise is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. Like even going into where we at now, Gen 8, and I'm still just like, okay, well, where can I get my Blastoise? Because he's a turtle with cannons coming out of his back. Like he is a walking tank, and he's just these giant cannons sticking out. Like it's so cool. It's so cool. I think to me that's cooler than having a big old dragon. And don't get me wrong, the dragon's cool, but yeah, I want to shoot you with big old cannons. So yeah, so I'd say for me that's not only my favorite starter, but probably outside of one other. I mean, I think, and it's such a not. It's a popular choice, but probably the best. My favorite of the game is probably Mewtwo. Whereas Blastoise would probably be, the close second. But I really like Blastoise. So we talked about starters. What's the favorite Pokemon of the game? Like, which one is your gotta have it? This is my main. Once I get it, what's the best out there?
100% Gengar.
I knew you were gonna say that for sure.
I don't know what it is about Gengar, but I don't know if it's that big goofy smile. Actually, I know exactly what it is. It's the Hypnosis Dream Eater combo that you can do with them, and you throw Gengar out into any battle with any type, put them to sleep, eat their dreams. You undefeatable. It's one of the best Pokemon that's in that game. It's my all-time favorite. It's in not only is it always in my six party, but it's always if I ever want to get any merchandise or anything like that, I always lean toward going after Gengar. He's just fantastic design, very simple, fantastic design. I guess you can call it lore behind Gengar, being basically an undead, ghostly, clefable, right? I think that floats around out there as a little lore piece. I don't know if it's for sure if that's the case. KneeSean will probably know a little bit more about it than I do, but yeah, Gengar is my favorite of the game. Very difficult to get because it's one of the trade ones, but when you get it and he's just steamrolling teams, Pokemon after Pokemon, just eating dreams. It's a down home favorite of mine.
Yeah, so it's a fan canon. It's not official canon, but fan canon is Gengar is the shadow of Clefable. So it's the evil version of in Gen 1 it'd just be a normal type, but now fairy normal in these gens. But yeah, so that's Gengar's lore for the fans. And I think Pokemon Company hasn't said anything, so it's unofficial canon now.
Yeah.
I mean, probably for me, it's Charizard, but since I already talked about Charmander being my starter, the one Pokemon whose design I love, but, I just never used them on a team for whatever reason, and this is going to be an odd one, is Golem. I just love Golem's design. It's just a little, Tyrannosaur head sticking out of a big boulder. He's got little stubby arms, and I don't know, just the look of him. I just loved how stupid but also cool he looked. And again, another one of those trade Pokemon, so he was always hard to get. And yeah, I don't know. I never really use him because his typing, ground and rock, is just super weak to a lot of things.
Yeah.
But
which is really shame because that whole evolutionary line, the Geodude, Graveler, Golem, it is a great design team whenever it comes to those three. But yeah, that's good.
Yeah, Golem's my favorite designed one.
Now, was that one you had to trade for too? Was that one of the? Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's 4 trade Pokemon in the game, and it's Alakazam, Gengar, Golem, and Machamp.
Yep, sounds right. Yeah, so when you made your decision for the game, and this I guess maybe a little bit more for you, KneeSean, because Steven, I think I basically chose for the both of us. When you made your decision, did the version exclusives play into that at all? What was the reason for choosing one over the other?
Honestly, we didn't even know about version exclusives when we got it. We're just look at this cool game for the Game Boy that we got plushes from KFC from. And then, my brother and I just kind of mutually agreed. I thought Charizard looked cooler, and my brother, you probably get along with him, Adam, he thought Blastoise looked cooler. So I mean, we didn't have to fight each other.
Much cooler. He's got the cannons. I keep going back to the cannons, but I mean, that's the defining feature, right?
Yeah. But yeah, so we just kind of we picked the box art Pokemon and we went from there.
Yeah, see, we actually there was strategy when I did mine. So my cousin Kirk, when he brought his, he had red as well, but our friend Lisa, who we ended up getting to see more frequently when we were kids, and just kind of knowing that there were exclusives for each game, I knew that I would have more opportunity to do trades with her than I would my cousin, since he lived in another state. So that was sort of the reasoning for me. And it's like, I knew I wanted to pick Squirtle and have Blastoise as my eventual like main fully evolved Pokemon, but I knew Red was the version I needed to get for, to be able to do the trading. And I think Blue, for the most part, had better exclusives. It had Sandshrew and Sandslash. It had, I think, Meowth and Persian as well. I'm trying to think which ones Red had. That
Mankey and Primeape, like again.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Meowth and Sandslash are cooler. Sandslash is just cool looking. So I mean, that's again, I'm choosing it based on looks, and I think, what is it? Blue had Electabuzz.
Red had Electabuzz. Magmar was Blue.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I have the list in front of me here. Because
okay.
I did just make sure. And
yeah, so Electabuzz is definitely the better of the two.
I'll give
those
Blue
two, yeah.
I'll give Blue this. It had Bellsprout and up to Victory Bell, which I think is the better of the plant type between Oddish and Bellsprout. I'll take a Bellsprout any day. So I love that evolutionary line more than I like the Oddish evolutionary line. So I would trade that out, but I would keep Meowth and Persian, or because Mankey and Primeape is like ridiculous fighting Pokemon.
I love Primeape. I don't know what you guys are talking about. He's just an angry monkey. What's wrong with that?
He's just so angry. He's again another one of those well-designed, funny-looking Pokemon, and he just punches everything. It's so good.
See, but meanwhile on Blue you have Sandslash, which is like angry Sonic the Hedgehog, right? Like,
yeah, that's true.
So, and then it had Meowth, who, I mean, you can't not love Meowth from the anime, right? The show. Meowth is such a great character, such a fun character that, like, yeah, who wouldn't want to have that? Of course, once you catch Meowth, like, not that special, normal type Pokemon, but it's Meowth.
That being said, once people like data mined a little bit into the game, it turns out Persian is like one of the top tier Pokemon in that game.
No kidding. I would not have known that.
Because they did crit ratios in the game in battles based on speed stats, and I believe Persian has the highest speed stat in the game. So pretty much every move it throws out lands in a crit.
That's incredible.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Wow. That's why Alakazam was so overpowered.
Yeah, because Alakazam was a beast.
Psychic was overpowered in Gen 1 because there were only like two types that were effective against it, and that'd be Ghost and Bug. And Bug didn't have a good attacking move, and the Ghost was on Gengar, which was part poison, which made him weak to psychic types. But yeah, Alakazam was also a super speedy Pokemon. Yeah. So Alakazam and Persian were like the OP Pokemon from Gen 1.
Yeah, Alakazam was great. Great.
Another one of the staples on my team. Like Alakazam, until you get Mewtwo, right? Because Mewtwo's psychic, and that was kind of the beast mode psychic Pokemon once you got him caught. But up until that point, like Alakazam was it. And that's why he was fast and extremely powerful. Nothing could touch him. It was just a great Pokemon for a team.
Yep. Just go out and throw psychics all day, and like you'll steamroll for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's why Sabrina is a lot of people's like least favorite gym, because there's really no way to go against her unless you overgrind your team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and kind of going back to the Gengar thing, and this might be a little bit controversial, but I think I like Haunter better than Gengar. I think Haunter is just, I don't know, it's that classic like ghost look to it. Like it looks like a ghost, right? And it looks like a very like malicious ghost. Whereas like Ghastly is just kind of like this puff of smoke looking thing. Haunter he looks like he wants to haunt you, and I love that. And I mean, I guess Gengar does too, but he's a little bit more goofy looking, and I don't know. I liked Haunter a little bit better. I didn't mind not trading him away, except for the fact that I wanted to catch him all, so I did. I did get a Gengar, but yeah, I think I figured I would throw that out there. Another one that I would I think I should shout out to, and again, this is one that probably in the end wasn't that impressive, or maybe it was. I know I always had it in my team, and that would be Scyther, just because I love the look of it. You got a Manus with two scythes for arms. Like, that's awesome. It just looks cool. And he was another one of those fast Pokemon. He had some pretty good attacks on him, so ended up being a pretty solid teammate to have on the group.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest strengths of Gen 1 is the designs for a lot of the Pokemon, because a lot of them are, they're close enough to actual animals that what Pokemon was going for, but there's just enough different with all of them that, these are obviously not of our world. There's something special about them.
So what about least favorites? Which ones do you just not care for, or just straight up avoid?
I think we can all agree on this one. I'm just going to throw it out there. I'm going to be surprised if you guys don't agree, and that's Mr. Mime.
Oh my god.
Yep.
I think Mr. Mime is probably a lot of everyone's least favorite Gen 1 Pokemon. He's a creepy looking clown mime. He's got dodgeballs for shoulder pads. He's got the little creepy. He's pretty much a human. Yeah, suction cup fingers and little elf shoes. It's
there was no appreciation for Mr. Mime until
savage
until Detective Pikachu. Until Detective Pikachu, there was no appreciation for Mr. Mime. Jinx, throw Jinx in there for me too.
Yeah,
Jinx is another one. Yeah,
Diglett is one that just I had no desire whatsoever to do anything with Diglett or Dugtrio.
It looks like a group of penises. I'm just gonna put it out there. I'm just gonna say what we're all thinking. Diglett looks like a penis sticking out of the ground.
And then what's better than one of them? Just three of them grouped together.
Yeah, let's make a whole bunch. Yep, it's a bouquet of penises.
Yep.
The worst. I mean, the Wigglytuff design isn't that great, so that wasn't a big one. Those ones, Mr. Mime, Jinx, and Diglett, just keep them. I don't need them. I don't need them at all.
I'll throw out Lickitung too, especially with Detective Pikachu. When you see it in a more realistic fashion, and it's just and yeah, nope, no thanks. No thanks.
Lickitung is one of my favorites. I love that one.
Yeah, I had 3 on my list for least favorite, and we crossed them all off right there. So glad I'm not alone in thinking.
I also didn't like Tauros either, just because it was just a bull. They just, where a lot of these Pokemon that we talked about, and like you said, KneeSean, there's very clear inspirations for what they're based off of, and Tauros is it's literally just a bull with 3 tails.
Yeah, that's true. With all of that are good, there's also Pidgey is just a bird. Rattata is just a purple mouse. But I mean, they can't all be winners.
It's true.
But most of them are, but some of them need a little design.
Man, you straight up wrecked Mr. Mime, dude. I love it.
I mean, he's a creepy guy. He had it coming.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh, so there's so many of them. There's 100, 150, 150. Is it 150 or 151? It's 150, right?
151. They only say 150, but only because Mew is a special. The special mythical Pokemon are always kind of hidden and
little outliers
and subject to early internet lore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then of course there was, a lot of different areas. We kind of touched on this a little bit before. A lot of different areas to go to, and like I said before, the world feels very lived in, which I liked a lot. And some of the cities, of varying sizes. There was a lot of places to travel to, and of course there were things that weren't, um, you know, little side areas that you go to. Right? There's, like you go on the ship for a little bit. You go on that boat and you do a little bit of stuff there. You go into like a secret, like arcade, secret lair type thing, which is cool. You go into Lavender Town, which has the big cemetery tower. Like, there's a lot of cool areas that are outside of just like New City Gym, New City Gym, New City Gym. So I think, we all kind of agree Lavender Town is awesome. Just, it's got a cool aesthetic. It's got a cool song. Like, there's a lot to like about it. Any other favorites you guys have? Any other locations that you really enjoyed or maybe didn't enjoy?
Pretty much. Okay, I'm gonna be positive first before I start wrecking the game again. Uh, Positive wise, I really liked the Pokemon Mansion on Cinnabar Island. Mostly because that's where you get a lot of cool fire types. I think you can get like Growlithe and Arcanines in there, and Vulpix and Ninetales. I think those were both version exclusive, so depending which version you had. And then also the lore that they give you for Mewtwo is scattered throughout the Pokemon Mansion. So that's probably my one of my favorite like side areas in the game. And I already forgot what my least favorite was. I was too positive. There's too much serotonin now.
Wherever you can
Yeah.
find Mr. Mime.
Yeah, I'll come back to it, and then I'll just start crushing the game.
Mine's Saffron City. Saffron City. That's the big one, right?
big one.
That's where Game Corner was, and what did the one where you go up the tower to save the CEO? Is that Pokemon Tower?
Silphco.
Silphco, that's it. And you get the goggles there too, right? Because of those areas, like Saffron's kind of that central city that you go in once and then you leave, and then you go back in again, and then you leave, and then you come back to it again for the gym leader. So it's like it's kind of this hub city, and there's so much to do in it. It was just a really cool place to hang out and do things. And there's a lot of little secrets that were involved with the city. So that's probably going to be one of my favorite places to go, other than maybe the Pokemon Cave outside of Celadon. It's definitely going to be Saffron. It's a great town. Just a great town. Lots of fun stuff to do in there. Least favorite? Rock Tunnel. What a troll of a tunnel. Like, troll of an area is Rock Tunnel.
There it is. You jogged my memory. That's my least favorite as well.
All the rock type, right? Again, Charmander starter. So like it was usually my plant type that I had to roll in there most with, or if I had a water type at the time, I can't remember what my starting makeup of the team was, but I had to sit Charmander out, or at that point it probably would have been Charmeleon more than likely. If I'm remembering the levels correctly, it probably would have been Charmeleon at that point, because Charizard's what, 36? 34 or 36.
Sounds
I think
right,
Charizard's 36 and Charmeleon is 16,
16.
I believe.
Yeah. So it would have been a Charmeleon at the time. So you sit him, right? And you go in the rock tunnel, and it's an absolute troll fest, because one, you've got to deal with the darkness. Luckily you get Flash to handle that, so that's not too bad. But then you have the Zubat, and you have all the rock types that are all piled up in there. It just is it's a terrible place, and it's a maze. It's just awful. It had no fun in there at all.
Yeah, it's early enough in the game where a lot of your Pokemon don't have like the elemental moves yet. So you're using the normal type moves against rock, which they resist. So those battles are going on for like 7, 8, 9 turns, and your health just gets whittled down, and right after you come out, the blue wants to come there and kick your butt a little bit, and it's like, oh, come on.
Right.
So am I confused? Is this because when I'm thinking, for me, one of my least favorite is Mount Moon.
Well, Mount Moon's another one
Yeah,
right?
because that one's super early. Like that's after your first gym.
Yeah.
And you don't have a good core of Pokemon at that point. You're sort of limited in level. You can only get up to a certain level because of your gym badges. You need to get more if you want to like really start maxing out your Pokemon. And it was long. I feel like I was constantly like I would have to go in, fight a trainer, go back out, hit up the Poke Center right outside the door there, heal, go back in. Like it was just this crazy back and forth, and it felt so long too. And so I think for me, that's like probably my least favorite because everywhere after that, I feel like you can get high enough level, you can get a decent group of Pokemon for just about any situation. But yeah, going into Mountain Moon, you just have so much restrictions. Like you basically have your starter, you might have a bird, you might have a bug, you might have maybe you get a Zubat when you go into Mountain Moon. Like that's basically it. A Rattata maybe. Like it's a bunch of normal stuff. You get like your maybe a flying, but that's not really going to be super handy in there. Like it's so awful and it's so long. You have a bunch of trainers on either side of it between cities that it's just like it's a slog too. And then of course once you get to the new city, then you have Nugget Bridge, which is just a gauntlet of trainers that you have to get through to move on to the next, the next area you're supposed to get to. And it's like, oh my God. So just like that whole section is awful. Like basically between gym 1 and gym 2 is like the worst section of the game.
Bad experience. Celadon for Palooza.
Yeah. But yeah, Saffron, like you said, is dope. I love how big it is. Again, just talking about like the world and how lived in it feels. And we have one of the most, iconic Pokemon soundtracks like ever in that. That, went on and it became an iconic stage in Smash Brothers too, right? Because there's a Saffron City stage in Smash Brothers, which is really cool. So because of that, again, the music kind of got ingrained in my head because of that. And yeah, so that was a good one. I think Safari Zone was really cool too, because you can get some really interesting and like unique Pokemon in there. I feel like I think that's where Scyther was.
I think that's the only place you can get Scyther, Chansey, Dratini is
the
I think
egg
you
thing,
can only get her there.
Executor
Mhm.
or Execute or whichever one it is. I think Kangaskhan you can only get in there.
Yeah.
Tauros
was in
Tauros,
there
I
too.
think, yeah. Yeah, so there was a bunch. And so yeah, I thought that was a pretty cool unique zone. I like that one a lot.
What were the water types that were in there? Because you could do fishing. What's in there?
Lapras?
The only one that's coming to mind for me, like because I think Goldeens and its evolution,
Seeking.
I think those were like the most common, so that's what keeps coming to my mind. But I think Dratini you could get in there. I'm not sure if Lapras was
That's what I'm thinking.
fishable.
If Lapras was in there or not, or if Lapras was down at the islands, the Seafoam
Islands, yeah, she might have been there, or she might have only been. Was she a Game Corner only Pokemon? Because I know Porygon you could only get at the Game Corner.
Yeah. Now I need to
Porygon's
know.
a good one too. I love the design of Porygon.
Yeah, that was a cool one. What is human created one, right? What a digital creation, basically, is what they did with that one. Lapras. Let's see.
I know, KneeSean, we fought about that when you were doing your tier list.
Yeah, when I did my tier list, I put where did I put? I think I put him
It
in
wasn't
just
good.
meh, right? I think so.
I think so.
Yeah, that and my not as much love for Blastoise. That's what got you really riled up.
It's Blastoise, man.
He's got cannons.
He's got cannons. Have you seen the size of those cannons? He's all like Blastoise. Like
that is the best. Blastoise does have that. Is the entrance when he comes in is just yelling his name, and really that came from oh man, It was from Smash Bros. Is where it really like
he would bust
coming
out the
out of the
door. He'd
Pokeball.
shoot you with cannons. It'd shoot you right off the stage. Like I don't think you took damage from it, but man, it would shove you hard. Yeah.
Blastoise, big deep voice to him. You know, it's, yeah, that's memorable about Blastoise. It's one of the best things. I can't find anything really quick on if Lapras is in there or not, because of course the wiki Bulbapedia is just so robust with information, so much to sift through. Maybe it was in there. Ness reference to Loch Ness Monster.
Lapras only appears in one spot in Pokemon Blue, Red, and Yellow. At the Sylph Company headquarters. After you fight Gary, the Sylph Co. employee next to him will give you a level 15 Lapras. So you can't even catch Lapras in the wild. It's a gift Pokemon.
Speaking of which, you mentioned Gary. Gary was, man, when you play this game as a kid and he's all like, smell you later, you're like, oh, I hate you, Gary. But then like when you look at today's Pokemon, right, and you have Hop and he's just like, hey, let's be best friends but rivals, and I'm gonna fight you with a sheep the whole game. Man, like get out, like his unrelenting optimism and friendship. It's like, dude, leave me alone. And it's like, give me the Gary's back. Give me the guy who's an actual rival and we can fight and we're really competing to see who's going to be the strongest. And he wants it. Gary wants it. And Hop I feel like he just kind of wants it, right? And he's just there for fun. And Gary's trying to be the freaking champion of the universe. And he's all like, smell you later. He does, yeah. Yeah, he becomes champ for all of like 5 seconds, but champ nonetheless.
Yeah, Gary was definitely back in the day, it was like, gosh, you hate this guy and you never want to see him again. But now, in comparison to some of the rivals that are out there now, like he is the best. And it was always the opposite color of whatever cartridge you had. So if you were playing blue, it was red, or if you were playing red, it was blue. So it was, blue showing up to fight you after Rock Tunnel, or picks a fight with you right out of the gate in Oak's office there, and it's just like he's ready. He's ready to just always throw down with you and insult you at any moment that he possibly can.
And he's always like one step ahead of you. No matter how like good you think your team is, his Pokemon are always like 2 levels higher than you. And at some point, I think what happened with Pokemon is the rivals switched roles. Like in Sword and Shield, we're Gary. Like we're overpowered and we are just wiping the floor with our rival.
We're telling Hop, smell you later.
Yeah, we're like, smell you later, Hop. I'm gonna be the champion first, and you can eat my dust.
Right. Change the roles. I like that. That's a good narrative.
I kind of like that. We as the player, we turn heel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Gary.
And then Hop, like just to go back to it, Gary chooses our opposite, right? So like,
the one that's strong against our starter.
Hop do, just to show off again that he's just this complete noob at everything and can't do Pokemon. He chooses the one that's weak against ours. It's like, come on, you're our rival. Like you're not even putting up a fight at that point. You've already let the type advantage happen.
And then Leon's like, oh, okay, I'll take the strong one.
It's like, no, Leon, you're supposed to do you, and I'm supposed to have the strong against the strong one. But yeah, Gary was the smartest rival. He was the best. He was the smartest, and his insults they would drive the player to just be better.
Yeah, Hop, he clearly did not pay attention to the tutorials in the game, typing and all that. I mean, his brother's the champion, for crying out loud. Like you'd think he'd learn a little bit of something on typing, but nope.
Yeah, it's like I watch every one of my brother's battles, and then it's like I'm gonna send out this water type against your grass type.
Right. Oh, so good.
And then Gary, you go to the anime again, just a character in the anime that every time he shows up, it's just like, oh my gosh, it's this guy, and he absolutely terrorizes Ash throughout the entire thing. Just absolutely terrorizes him.
Ash is walking everywhere by foot, and Gary's in a convertible surrounded by female admirers
picking up honeys.
picking up putties, driving around in his convertible, and just catching. I think one of the best scenes from the anime was the Kingler comparison, right? I think it was the Kingler or a Krabby. I think actually it was the Krabby, right? So Ash catches his Krabby, sends it back to Oak, and he's like, "Hey, check out what I got." And then he's like, "Oh, well, look at Gary's Krabby," and it's like 5 times the size of Ash's. It's just like it's one of those moments where it's like Gary continually terrorized Ash throughout his entire adventure, and that carried into the game really well. It was just a love to hate type of deal back then with him, and now we have Hop. But
Yep.
the narrative, we're Gary now, and I'm okay with that.
And
I have the convert.
yeah, and it's stuff like this that makes Gen 1 like, I don't know, so special, I think. And there's been so many versions of it too, right? So like Red and Blue was the initial thing, the one that started it all, and then you have Yellow, which came out, which I think is more closely related to the anime, the show, because of the themes that it brings along with it, and having Pikachu as your, like, you don't get a choice, you just get Pikachu, and it doesn't go in the Pokeball, it follows you around, which was pretty neat. And then of course you can get all the starters in that game too, which is just incredible. So yeah, Yellow is like definitely the definitive edition that I just didn't know about growing up. Like I had Red and I was perfectly content playing that over and over and over again. But like, man, Yellow was so cool and I just didn't know it. I'm like, well, I don't want Pikachu as a starter, and like not knowing, like I could get my Squirtle in that for like nothing basically, and you could get Charmander, you could get Bulbasaur, and oh man, to have all of them.
Was it right after Celadon you could get Squirtle? So it was like right there.
Yeah, I think you can get most of them pretty early. I think before the 3rd gym, you can get the full roster of them.
It's either Squirtle or Charmander. You have to beat Lieutenant Surge, but yeah, before the 4th gym, you can have all 3 starters on your team.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I think Charizard was a gift one, because I think you just talked to somebody and they gave up Charizard. So maybe it was Bulbasaur that you got after Surge.
It's I think there's an Officer Jenny. It's like, hey, this Pokemon's been causing trouble, and I need a good trainer.
Wasn't that Squirtle?
Like, it might have been Squirtle. I where you get them. It's been so long since I played Yellow, but like after you defeat Surge and she sees that you have the Thunder Badge, I believe, she's like, oh, you're a pretty good trainer. Here's this Pokemon, and then all of a sudden you have
that one's your gifted Squirtle. So like if you want to go and get them gifted, because I think you can get all 3 starters gifted to you.
Yeah.
Charmander is right after Celadon. There's a guy that'll gift you a Charmander. And then after Surge, Jenny will give you the Squirtle. Where's Bulbasaur fall in? I'm trying to think where the gifted Bulbasaur is. But you can also catch them out in the wild. Because I know that's a thing. I remember
that sounds right. Yeah, that sounds right.
On a Yellow emulator and camping out in certain places that you could catch them in the wild, but you also have the gifted ones. So Yellow was definitely unique, really cool. And then there was, of course, if you had a Super Game Boy, you could play any of those OG Game Boy titles on that, which would give you like color. You could get various borders to kind of surround the game, and you're basically at that point you're playing on, think of it, it's like the original Switch basically, right? Like you're playing on your Game Boy, and then it's like, okay, well, I want to play on the TV now, and you plug it into the Super Game Boy cartridge and play it on there. So although that's not like a version on its own, it's another way that you can like play and enjoy the game. But later on then we got Leaf Green and Fire Red, which were GBA titles, I believe. And KneeSean, you kind of taught me something about that tonight before we started our recording here.
Yeah, so the way Pokemon like categorizes their games in terms of generation is not like what region they're from. It's when they were released. So Red, Blue, and Yellow are considered Gen 1, but then Fire Red and Leaf Green, despite being remakes of Gen 1 games, are technically considered Gen 3 because they came out in the era of Ruby and Sapphire. So those are considered Gen 3 games. Technically, you can get like the Gen 2 and Gen 3 Pokemon in that game. It's after you defeat the main story you can do that, but yeah, technically speaking, those are, while following the same storyline, are not technically Gen 1 games.
Hmm. But to kind of go along with that, and we talked about this a little bit too, is that even though that may be the case, the story is still the same. You're still going through the same story beats. You're doing all the things. You're initially, at least, you're collecting the same Pokemon that you would have in the original game. So, yeah. So while it's, I guess, technically Gen 3, it's still mostly Gen 1 at its core.
They are Gen 1 remakes. It's the same story. There's a few story differences. I think Blue isn't your rival right off the bat. It's a different character. I don't even know his name. That's how unforgettable he was. But and then by the time Gen 3 ran around, you could also pick which gender your trainer was. So it was a more inclusive game. You could be Leaf, which is what her name is in canon, is the female protagonist from Gen 1.
Yep. And then from there, we had even more recently, we had the Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee games, which were not direct remakes of the original, but dang, they were very similar in what you do. And it's kind of like a continuation of the original game, from what I recall.
They're pretty close to they're pretty much yellow remakes in terms of your starter Pokemon follows you around, and it's also in the Kanto region, and there's Team Rocket and all that stuff. But yeah, they're separate, but not quite, direct remakes.
Great games though. Very similar to Yellow.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were kind of like, oh, well, that's not Pokemon, because of the way that you, like, the mechanics of it, right? You're not, outside of trainer battles, you're not doing regular battles with Pokemon. You're just running into encounters, and then you're just tossing Pokeballs at it. And a lot of people didn't like that. And, I kind of don't get the hate for it. I thought it was pretty cool. It's different. I think I do like the original core gameplay better. But I think it was totally fine, and it was fun, and it was a great nostalgia trip as well.
See, I got caught up in the naysayers, because I was like, oh, it's got this go mechanic for catching. I don't know. I don't want to be involved in that. And then it's funny, because I actually went into Gen 8 before I went back and I played Gen 7, the Let's Go's, because I wanted to get the Let's Go Pokemon transferred over into my Sword and Shield game to make sure I could get those Pokemon added to the deck. So it was like, and after I went back to it, like, I have no hate for that game at all. Like, the go mechanics aren't even really that annoying. If you really want to double it up and make it easier on yourself, you can use the 2 controllers to really just, make sure you catch everything. You can, I was playing with the kids, because you can pair up with I was able to pair up with the kids and play with them whenever they were playing, and kind of hop in as a backup trainer with them and teach them to play Pokemon, which then that skill went into Sword and Shield for them. And my at the time 5-year-old son became a Pokemon champion in Sword and Shield. So it was good to see, kind of have that experience in Let's Go, and then move it in with the family into Sword and Shield and make it a successful time for us. And now he's a Pokemon fan, so it was great. I think it was a fantastic remake. It was good to have it.
Yeah, and I think it did a couple things that the Pokemon community really was yearning for and also wanted a return of, and that's Pokemon following you, which I think a lot of people loved from Yellow and Gen 4. And then also Pokemon in the overworld. You can actually see wild Pokemon before you encounter them, which a lot of people were clamoring for the longest time, instead of the random walking through the tall grass or through the cave. Instead, you actually got to see, oh, there's a Rattata. I want to avoid that. Or, oh, look, there's a Kangaskhan. I'm going to go encounter that one.
Yeah, those are 2 really good mechanics that, I would like to see more of that. And we are seeing that in Gen 8, where you're rolling around in the wild area or on one of the routes and you can see the Pokemon out there. And that's just, it's a really great addition that it's just so nice, especially too, like when you're rolling through like Mountain Moon or something and you're running into a Pokemon like every 2 steps. And it's like when you can see them out there, like you can walk around, you can avoid them. You don't have to get into those encounters, which is really great. I mean, obviously the game gives you the option. You can get like repels and things like that. That'll give you a certain amount of steps encounter free. But, in this, you can just kind of avoid them physically, which is great.
Yeah.
And so to kind of walk things back a little bit, not really, an RPG in any sense, but there was Pokemon Stadium as well, which was on Nintendo 64, was awesome. I spent a lot of time in that game. And that was kind of another one of those things where it's like you're taking your existing roster of Pokemon and you can load them into that game. If you have like the little cartridge thing, you can upload them in. And that was really cool. So I was taking my Pokemon from the game that I had raised and trained and all that. And even the ones that like, because you could do an item dupe in that game, right? Rare candies and like the things that'll boost, stats and things like that, where you could do that, do the glitch, feed your Pokemon to insane levels, and then bring them into Stadium and just steamroll. Like, I don't know, that was all just a lot of fun. KneeSean, did you play Stadium?
I was never big into Stadium, mostly because I didn't have the little like cartridge transfer thing, so I was just using the computer generated Pokemon that.
Yeah.
But I do remember that's like the first time we saw Pokemon like 3D sprites.
Yeah, it was awesome.
And back then it was mind blowing. It's like this is the future of Pokemon. I want 3D Pokemon all the time forever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, especially when you look on your Game Boy screen, right? And they're just like these little, like dumpy looking things in a lot of cases, or they're so small, they're squished in, they're all pixelated. And then, yeah, you get the 3D ones and it's like, man, like this is the future of gaming. This is the future of Pokemon. And, granted it took a long time to get to that point, but, yeah, super, super cool.
How about gyms, guys? So we talked about Garrett, Brock, who is the beginning game troll. So if you go and we talked a little bit about Sabrina too, because of how Psychic is set up. So outside of those two, where are you going? And is it because you hate them or is it because you love them?
So I'm gonna name off 2. One because it's like my top moment in all of Gen 1, so I'm gonna save that for second. But the gym bet leader that I really loved was Lieutenant Surge. I don't know why, I just loved his like this cocky attitude he had, and he's like, I've got fast electric Pokemon and there's nothing you can do to stop me. And if you just have a Geodude, you're gonna wreck his team anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, I just loved his cocky attitude, and there's lore behind him too. It's like, oh, he was a lieutenant in the war, and it's like, there's a war. What war are you talking about? Pokemon went to war, and that's all we get. We never learn any more about that. So Lieutenant Surge for that, but then yeah, the top moment for me in Gen 1 is when we find out who the Vermilion City or Viridian City gym leader is. That's the last gym you visit. And it turns out to be none other than Giovanni himself, the boss of Team Rocket, is the gym leader for Viridian City. And it's like, you've already battled him twice. You've thwarted his plans of stealing Pokemon for profit. And this is like personal. Before it was, I need to get badges because I want to be the best trainer ever. But this gym battle is, this is good versus evil, everybody. If I lose this, Giovanni is gonna come back and take over the world.
The stakes, they were so high.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, I think for me, I think my favorite's got to be the water gym and Misty, just because I love water types. I mean, Blastoise, right? The cannons, everybody, the cannons. But she also, Misty had great Pokemon too. She had Starmie and Staryu, which are two really cool looking Pokemon in my book. And I know in the later versions, they're not only water, but psychic too. And psychic being one of my favorite types a lot because of Gen 1 and how awesome psychic was in Gen 1. Yeah, so those are some of my favorite Pokemon. And again, water Pokemon in general are really cool. There's a lot of great ones. There's Lapras, there's Gyarados, there's, obviously Blastoise, and then later we had like Greninja and all those. Like water type is just one that really resonates with me. So I would definitely go that. I feel bad saying this now because Lieutenant Surge was my least favorite.
Yeah.
And I feel bad now because it's like, okay, he's a veteran, right? We want to support, soldiers and troops and everything. And so Lieutenant Surge, thank you for your service, but your gym is filled with trash cans and you are a trash person. And so
You thought I mean to Mr. Mime.
he's such a douche. It's like you have all these trash cans and like it's perfect. It's like Oscar the Grouch, like it's so on point, like that it's absurd. So yeah, Lieutenant Surge, least favorite for sure.
I'm with Nisha. I think Lieutenant Surge was my favorite as well. I liked the aesthetic of everything, and yeah, his puzzle might not have been the best, but like going into that electric type gym and then finally meeting Surge, and he's just like, I'm gonna shock you to death, sort of thing. And yeah, you end up steamrolling him, but I mean,
his
like,
Raichu could be a major roadblock, though. That thing could be tough if you don't have a good counter to it.
The cannons, Palooza, but the cannons.
You don't have the cannons at that point. You can't you can't have Blastoise at that point. And even then, Raichu would be pretty devastating against it.
And then my least favorite was Giovanni. I get what you're saying there, NeeSean, but whenever you walk into that gym and it's him again, it's just like, how many times am I gonna have to teach this old man? Like, how many times? And what? Oh, it's your Persian again. Okay, yeah, all right. It's just one of those things. Did have a handful of others, but it was just like, I beat you in the tower. I beat you in the hideout. What's gonna happen here?
He's tell me the Gary of gym leaders.
It's like, we know what's going to happen here. Do you just want to give the badge over and call it a day or what? I think the really nice piece that they added into, I think it was in Let's Go, is after you got done beating Giovanni, the Elite Four kicked him out, right? They kicked him out of the league and Gary takes over that gym. Isn't that how it goes at the end of the game? Like after you get done rolling?
I'm not even sure the Elite Four kicks him out. I think it's like he just has a change of heart at that point. It's like I don't want to do this anymore. I'm just gonna slink off into the shadows, and then Gary just kind of moves in naturally. I could be mistaken though. It could be Elite Four's like
the change of heart.
You're the boss of the Pokemon underworld. You probably shouldn't be a gym leader.
But that was
when you can beat someone else's Pokemon, you automatically get their respect. So, although I guess, with Giovanni, you had to do it a couple times, and Gary, I don't even think after you beat him, I don't think he respected you. So maybe he's the exception.
Yeah, he still said that he was going to smell you later and everything afterwards. Yeah. But Giovanni, 3 times too many, sir. 3 times too many.
Fair. Yeah. And the other thing too about Yellow was the addition of Jesse and James from the show. Now, I don't think they didn't quite bring the same personality in the game as they had in the show, but and they're not gym leaders. I know we're talking about gym leaders, but yeah, I thought that was cool that they were at least there. So it's like, hey, I remember them from the show. Team Rocket blasting off again.
Yeah, and they throw out a Meowth, a Ekans, and a Coughing, and you're like, oh, I remember that. Those are their Pokemon from the show. It was just a nice little nod.
And then, talking about RPGs or really any game in general, we can't finish off a discussion without talking about speedruns, randomizers, And even in the case of Pokemon, there's a very, very, I guess, like cult following for a way to play the game is called Nuzlocke. And I don't know a whole lot about it other than it's just a bunch of self-imposed rules to make the game very challenging. Maybe one of you have a little bit of additional light you can shed on what a Nuzlocke run is.
So
Yeah,
if
so
go ahead,
oh,
Nishan,
good.
because
Yeah, so Nuzlocke was I did some research on this because I know the general concept, but I wanted to know like the origins of it. It's from a a streamer named or an artist named Nick Franco. He loved Pokemon so much he did like comics about it, and he made this rule set for himself to enjoy the game a little more. And it was while playing Gen 3 game Pokemon Ruby, and he didn't call it a Nuzlocke at first. It was just these rules he put himself, and it's the rules for a Nuzlocke. There's only three, and they're pretty simple. It's you have to catch the first Pokemon you encounter on a new route, and that's the only Pokemon you can catch on that route. If a Pokemon faints, it's dead, so you can't use it on your team anymore. You have to release it into the wild. And the third rule they added, which was after it became popular, is you must give your Pokemon a nickname. So it's pretty basic. It's to add extra challenge because you can't just get a bunch of Pokemon and you can't really farm for a rare Pokemon on a route. You have to get the first one that shows up. And yeah, it's big in the Pokemon community because since Gen 6 on, Pokemon's become a little bit handholdy, a little bit easier for the younger generation. So it's a good way to give some of the older players more of a challenge while playing the game.
and I
For the
guess they have
hardcore.
one of the other things. Friend of my channel, and oh my gosh, I can't remember his name now. He's gonna kill me. Extra, is it extra? Oh gosh,
Extra
hold on.
Mask?
Extra Mask. Yeah, he was
That
doing a
sounds right. Yeah,
Nuzlocke.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, he's gonna kill me. I want him to listen to this, but now I don't want him to. But yeah, Extra Mask was doing a Nuzlocke run in Emerald, I think it was, and he added in. So on top of those other rules, there's a couple other ones that you can add in to even increase more on the difficulty. One of them is not using potions and stuff, like not using items, which is wild to me because you
Yeah,
can only heal
no item runs.
no item Nuzlocke runs, like not being able to heal up. And that whole idea that the Pokemon that faints is gone forever, like that's just adding those two things together. I think end up making that game very, very interesting and very challenging to do. But he was also combining it with what you had mentioned before, the randomizing of these games, where you can get all things randomized all the way down to what the Pokemon evolves into. So like you could have a Rattata at the beginning, but it levels up and evolves. It could evolve into a Lapras, right? So it has this randomization to the evolution as well. Randomized item drops. Who you run into in gyms, I think, is also randomized. So it has all these different pieces to the game that's just completely random. Same base game, but all kind of tossed together in some new manner that you may not. So you can't react to certain parts of the game that you know are coming up the same way as what you did whenever you're playing the base game, which is a really cool little piece. And you have a lot of familiarity with randomizers through Link to the Past and Super Metroid Palooza. So it's like you've got it's that same idea. Stuff could just be anywhere. And in a game like Pokemon, where it's so large, like there's a lot that you could potentially encounter through one of these things. So it's a
Yeah, a lot of randomized Nuzlocks end with that one fisherman battle, the one that has 6 Magikarps. Then all of a sudden, if you randomize who the Pokemon are in encounters, this guy might have like 6 legendary Pokemons on his team,
Oh my
and
god.
like what's supposed to be a routine, like just time waster, knocking out a bunch of Magikarps could just end your run immediately.
Yikes. But yeah, and then there's, speed runs out there too. So I mean, I'm sure there's no shortage of footage out there if you want to see someone just absolutely blast through the entire game in a matter of hours. And they always, RPG speedruns always give me anxiety because I am so used to going through, leveling up, grinding, whatever. I want to steamroll stuff. And here they go through all these, manipulations and just like precision. They basically have their battles scripted almost to get through it at lower levels at certain points. And then I think typically the way Pokemon speedruns go is they have like, they'll get their starter and then they get like one or two more Pokemon throughout the game. And that's like the main Pokemon through the whole rest of the way. And it's pretty wild. Like I can't imagine like just having that one Pokemon and being the main thing and like relying on items to increase the stats so that they can get the edge in battle. Like I said, it's anxiety inducing for me as someone that plays these games casually, but man, are they fun to watch. So definitely check those out.
Right now, the world record for Pokemon Red and Blue, played on a Game Boy Advance emulator, was set 3 months ago, and it's 1 hour and 45 minutes and 5 seconds.
Wow.
Like, it's crazy how they do these things.
I mean, I imagine there's some pretty serious glitches in there for that because I've seen
it's at any percent glitchless.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
The glitch runs, you're getting sub 2 minutes in glitch runs.
18 for any percent, which with glitches. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. Yeah, I've seen some pretty game breaking speed runs for sure. But yeah, I mean to do glitchless in like under 2 hours, that's insane.
I mean,
and a lot of it's like item usage really is what it comes down. A lot of these RPGs, Pokemon's no exception. So speedruns are item usage, and it's amazing how they optimize their item usage, knowing exactly how many of the X defenses or X specials that they need to power up their Pokemon enough that basically they go into battles 10 levels lower than the Pokemon that they're fighting, but steamroll them like they're 10 levels higher because of how they use these items. It's nuts. Yeah. And it's incredibly impressive. Great routing.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, so that kind of just about wraps everything up. We do have the most important question we're going to get to here in a second. But before we do that, any final comments you guys want to make on the game?
I'm glad this came out. This is one of those games from a long time ago that it set a bar for a lot of things, and it permeates into our gaming now. I'm just really glad that we've had the opportunity to play it whenever it came around, and that certain things from it have carried on into the games that we play today. It's just so influential, and it's a great thing to have in a library or even emulate at some point in time, but go back to. It's just good. It's great. And if you want to get that taste in kind of the modern generation, the Let's Go's are there, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think, as somebody who's a self-admitted like non-RPG player, like it's not one of my favorite genres, but Pokemon is probably my favorite like series of games, and it's like it's RPG to its core. It has levels, it has stat boosts and building the perfect team and tinkering with everything. So it has all the staples of an RPG, and I think that really speaks to the game itself, that like even people that aren't fans of the genre are fans of the genre.
Yep, for sure. Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Yeah, it's just crazy, like kind of looking through just kind of looking at the game a little bit before doing this recording or throughout the month as I was kind of planning things out. And it's like, I love this series so much, and Gen 1 especially, like it does just bring back like just great childhood memories and just the nostalgia and the fun and the wholesomeness for the most part. Like, yeah, it's just such a good series, and I'm so glad that these games got made. So, as I mentioned, the most important question for those of you like me that need to know and maybe don't already know, can you level grind in this game? And the answer is yes, you can. Kind of, mostly. You do get level capped based on your badges that you have, and then your Pokemon may choose not to listen if they go above a level that you don't have a badge for. But there still leaves a lot of room for grinding in there for those that want to level up. You can, if you get pretty close to that cap before you get your next badge, you're going to have a pretty easy time getting through the next gym or next portion of the game. So for that, I will say, yes, you absolutely can level grind.
Agreed.
100%.
Yep. So there you have it. The most important question. All right, let's go ahead and wrap things up here, guys. Thanks both of you for being here on the show and talking about Pokemon with me. It's one of the greatest series out there. Great RPG. So KneeSean, where can people find you?
You can find me streaming on Twitch. Works a little crazy, so I'm usually only 2 nights a week, Wednesday and Thursday evening, 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, doing a lot of Nintendo-based games, and that's twitch.tv/KneeSean. And you can also follow me on Twitter at knee__Sean, because apparently there's 2 KneeSeans in the world ahead of me.
All right, and how about you, Steven?
You can find me Lordly King S. on Twitch, 9 a.m. Eastern Time to 12/1-ish, Monday through Friday. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at the same place, Lordly King S.
All right, and I have been your host. You can find me at AdamPalooza85 on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram, all those places. Give us all a follow here. Check us out. We, various content between the three of us. Always a good time hanging out in each other's channels and everything. Great community. But yeah, so thanks everybody for joining us for this episode 2 of Level Grinders podcast. If you like this, please make sure to leave a review on whatever podcast service you listen to. Follow us on social media. Subscribe to Games Are Fun on YouTube. If there's a game you'd like to see discussed on this show, please reach out to us. Find us on those social media platforms. Games Are Fun Pod on Twitter. You can join our Discord, invite.gg/gamesareFun. You can talk to any of us there. We're all in on the Discord, along with a lot of other great community members. You can leave a comment in the YouTube comments, or you can contact us at contact@gamesarefunpodcast.com. So that'll be the show. Thanks again, everybody, for hanging out. Thanks to co-host Steven and special guest KneeSean. And we'll catch you on the next episode. Keep on grinding, everybody.